I've got everything cleaned up. I'm going to wipe that surface down, that mounting surface, one more time with a little brake clean. Just make sure it's clean. It needs to be cleaned. Got my new water pump. Hopefully I won't be blocking everything that you see. Try to stay out of the way. It's kind of hard. Camera needs to be right where I am, kind of. I kind of need to be there to see what I'm doing, so. I'm just going to show you a second to dry. Now here's the pump, new pump, gaskets on it. I put a very thin coat on the side that faces, I don't know what you're saying here, that faces the pump. I don't want to put silicone on the side that faces the block. There wasn't any on there with the one that came off. And if you do this, don't put a lot. I just put enough to keep the gasket in place. Really thin coat. These bolts are torqued to 18 foot-pounds. So I'm just gonna feed this down in here. I got my bolts, and I do have a light coat of sealer on the bolts. I don't believe any of these go into the water jacket, but I'm not 100% sure. So usually when I do a water pump, my gasket just came loose, so you can't see that, but I just saw it move. I know it's in that one. I've got to check my other hole here. Make sure my gasket's lined up correctly. Looks like it is. When I usually do that for a water pump with a Teflon sealer, just a little bit, thin coat, just in case they do in the water jackets, so I don't have to worry about them leaking. I'm going to do these kind of crisscross, one corner to the opposite corner diagonally. Torque them down. I'm just going to snug these up and get them started. All these bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about which goes where. Okay, I'm just torquing these. I'm going to diagonally, and then I snugged them up, and now I'm just going to 18 foot-pounds on each one. Here's 18. Finishing them up here. Just checking them. 18. These don't take a whole lot. Just want to check them one more time. Good. Should all be tight now. Okay, that's it for the water pump. I've got the new tensioner. Remember, this flat edge goes down. Leave the pin in. Don't pull the pin. We're just going to put this. It says 18 to 22 foot-pounds for this bolt. We're just going to put it in place and get it started here. That comes with a new bolt. At least this one did. The tensioner back in, it's loose, the bolt's in there, but it's not torqued. You don't want to torque it, you just want to be in there, so this still has to be able to move. So we're going to leave that like that for now. We're going to start this on the crank, the bottom crank pulley, and we want no slack on the side that's facing the front of the engine. That's the side we're going to start. I'm just going to feed this down in here. I know you can't see, it's kind of hard, but I'm going to get it started on the crank pulley. Or the crank, I should say the crank gear, not the crank pulley. Pulley's off of there. Okay, I've got it started. So, this front side, I want to have that tight. I don't want slack in that, so I'm just kind of pulling up on it to keep it tight around the crank gear. And I'm going to pull this side, make sure it's there's not slack on this side, which there is right now. I just have to redo it. I'll get it right here. Okay, keep that tight. I don't want this coming loose. Going around my water pump. It's a little tight fit. Should be able to slide this on there now. Come on. Come on, you're right there. Slide on. There we go. Still have my tension on this side. No slack. Now I'm going to pull my pin. That tensions the belt for me. Once it's tensioned, I check it again. I don't have any slop on this side. Check my marks. My top mark's lined up. Check my bottom mark. Make sure it's still lined up. Nothing's moved. Yep. My bottom is still lined up. I'm going to tighten this bolt now to 20 foot-pounds. 18 to 22 is what it calls for. 20 foot-pounds. Okay, that's it. So now I'm going to go down, put an extension and a ratchet back on this crankshaft bolt, and I'm going to rotate the engine 2 full revolutions on the crankshaft gear back up to top dead center here, and make sure my marks are where they should be and I haven't missed by a tooth or anything like that. I've been around once. I'm going to go around one more time. Hold the extension because it's going to want to move on you as it comes in and out of compression here. It rolls over the cam. Coming up to the second time around here, I'm going to bring my time mark on my crankshaft pulley back to the top. Right there. And I am right on. I'm checking my top mark here to make sure it's still lined up. And it is lined up. And we should be, I don't like the way this is sitting though. I'm going to rotate this a few more times. This belt looks good on the bottom. Really can't be off on the bottom because of the crank, but I don't like the way it's kind of sitting right on the edge of that top pulley. So I'm going to rotate it a couple more times and try to make sure it's lined up front to back. That looks much better. Much better there. So it's a little bit this way on this front edge. Just rotated it 2 more revolutions. Now it looks much better. It's back. Looks right where it should be. Looks good on the pulley. Everything looks good. Let's start putting things together. I believe I can put this cover on before I put my crankshaft pulley on. Lower bolt on this is notched here. Actually, they're all notched, but this one's the one that's hard to get to. So I'm actually going to start that bolt first, just to make it easier to get at it. Looking back through the wheel well, I'm just going to do my crank bolt here. A lot easier with air tools. Move it. Slide my, I'm going to get my belt here, which I want to clean off first, but I want to get that around my crank pulley before I put that pulley in there. It's just like that. That'll hold it. That clamp's holding it for me. It's just a lot easier than trying to fish it through there later. Just be careful of the wheel on this. It's the crank sensor uses that wheel. So my keyway is straight up. So I've got to line that keyway up and slide that back in place, obviously. There it is. I just kind of should be able to wiggle that right back on there, and it went right back on. Put my bolt back in. This is 89 foot-pounds for this. You got to find a way to hold it. and tighten it at the same time. This tucks in behind this lower cover, so I'm going to set that back in place and get that started before I tighten that plastic cover up down the bottom there. And I just rub it against my belt, brand new belt, but no big deal. I'm going to set that up in place. There's a guide pin there to get started. There we go. Get it lined up right, it goes right on there. Just didn't have it lined up quite right. And get a couple bolts started. At least try to. Maybe. Anyone? Somebody? There's one. And that's tough to see. Got the light shining up too. Make sure my cover is where it's supposed to be in it. It looks like it is. There's two. I'll put right there. Huh. Come on. Alright, two lower ones started here. Blocking all your light, I know. I'm blocking all the light. There's three started. Start these by hand, of course. Always by hand. So you don't cross thread anything. I didn't tighten them yet. I'm going to get my lower cover bolts, my plastic cover bolts. 8mm heads on them. These are 71 to 101 inch-pounds. They're not very tight. You just got to snug them up. You can torque them if you want, but really they're just holding the plastic cover in place. And of course that bottom one is difficult to get to, just like it was coming out. Okay. All right, my three bolts on my bottom plastic cover are tight. I have not tightened these yet, but I'm going to put my coolant hoses back in before I get stuff back in the way. Put them back on, get my clamps back in place. Find my pliers. Go get my pliers. There's one. Top one here. Come on. Come off of there. There's two. One here. Alright, cooling hose is hooked back up. I don't know what the torque is on these. I don't know. I was trying to find it, couldn't find it, but I'm not really that concerned. I'm going to snug them up pretty good. They're a good sized bolt. I'm not going to crush them. Don't go all crazy on them. But you do want to snug them up. Mental check, these top four, we torqued them, they're back on. I do want to, I believe, if I remember correctly, this was on before my mount. I don't know, we'll figure it out. I'm going to clean my pulleys down here, just brake clean them off, make sure to clean out any junk that I might have gotten on them. And then I'm going to put my belt back on, and then we'll come back, we'll put the motor mount and everything back in place that needs to go back in here. Belt's back on. A lot easier to do with the motor mount off of here. I will say that. There's the diagram. That's the front of the car, that way. Crankshaft, pulley, AC compressor. That's the routing. Alright, so now I should be able to put this mount back in here. Let's see if we can get this lined up and slide it back in. See how far off we are. And we're not too bad. We're not bad at all, actually. Get everything, see if I can get everything started on here. These two just on and not all the way in. Shift the motor to the back a little bit, but that's the main reason I jacked all four corners of this up so it was level sitting on the jack, because it just makes it so much easier when it's not tilted. Get these two started, get these three bolts started down here on the mount. One more down here. Okay, looks better. I'll get my gun out here, get my sockets. We'll go with these three first. It's all the way down on the frame rail because I didn't really pick it up much. Check them by hand when I'm done here. Okay. Now where this mount sits on top of this cover right here, make sure there's no gap. It should be flush against it. I'm just going to snug these up and then I'll do them by hand. I'm going to run them down. I don't know what the torque setting is on these, to tell you the truth. Good size bolt. Don't you know, Look it up if you're not worried about it. Don't go nuts. Don't snap them off or anything like that. Not get crazy. Good. That's tight. Okay. My power steering lines back here, my reservoir. It just lines up and slides down in there. Should. Except that one half of it's bent. Got a bent tab on it here. Let's see if I can fix that. I'm in here, I might as well fix that too. Bent. Yeah, I think it's fixed. That's the easiest thing on this job. Alright, that's in place. Get our overflow reservoir back. It's only plastic. I'll kill it. Okay. My hose clips. I gotta clip these two hoses together. Took them apart. Put them back together now. We're gonna go close my petcock on my radiator and refill it. You know, purge the coolant for it. Make sure I get all the air out of it, and then I'll come back after I do that. After I get it filled back up, and then we'll start it up and see how it goes. Just making sure I'm going through a mental checklist here. I didn't miss anything and forget anything. I don't have my covers back on underneath, but I will put them back on and on my wheel well. I'm just going to let this come up to temperature, make sure I can get the coolant to the right level. I'm sure it's going to push air out. Just let it run. I'm going to turn my air conditioner off. So we're just going to let this run, come up to temperature, bleed out the cooling system on it, make sure it's got all the coolant it should have, check for any coolant leaks. But right now, looks pretty good. Obviously it runs. Well, that's pretty much it. Obviously it's running good, no problems. Pretty easy job. Not too bad. Couple hours, not too bad. Well, that's it for the 2000 Ford Focus single overhead cam 2.0 liter timing belt. Car's much happier. It's driving much better. Not a very hard job. Really, a couple hours. That's it. Hour and a half. If I wasn't filming, hour and a half maybe. Do it. Just get at it and do it. But if you have to do this for your Ford Focus or 2.0, there's a couple different cars, Escort. There's a couple that have an Escort, like any of them are still around. I haven't seen one of them in ages. If you have to do this for your car, I hope it helps you out. If you like the video, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.